Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our host, Mel Robbins.
Awesome. Hey, welcome back. So are you guys ready to end And Then 16 with Kobe Bryant? Right? Oh, wait. No. He is backstage. On the count of three, we're going to let him hear you. 1, 2, 3. All right. Awesome. So before we bring him out, let me tell you about the Battleground competition. Were you guys there? It was amazing. I got to watch it. I'm so excited I snuck it in. All 5 companies did such a fantastic job that the judges awarded $2.5 million in pilots across all 5 companies. Is that not amazing? Let's give them a big round of applause. Well, I loved being in Los Angeles with you, all of you, where the science of creativity makes it possible to reach huge audiences through new technologies and the powerful storytelling. I've had a ton of fun helping you tell your stories. In fact, I went to the Experience Zone yesterday to find out how you're using data in your business to connect with customers. This is what we learned. We're here in the Experience Zone. I'm right next to the hub stage, and we're going to find out what people think about data.
I love data.
Data.
Okay.
I snuck up behind you so you couldn't run.
Oh, there you are. Data mining.
These two, they come together as a package deal.
We're using it to help better identify what they want and deliver an experience that is more relevant to them. Data.
We're going with the ice. Here we go. Gotta cool things down because it's getting very hot. Hot here at the DMA. Okay. Hey, there she is. Nice to see you.
It's always been about data for 30 years, so from prospect data and now customer data, and it drives everything we do.
Here's how we're using data.
Data.
All right, well, I think that about explains how everybody's using data, which is they're all over the map, they're using it in amazing ways, and now I got some amazing things I gotta do. I'm out. All right, I told you we would end with a bang, so let's do this. What do you say? You've already met one of LA's hometown favorites, and you're about to learn about his plans for transforming his brand. This is going to be a truly unique opportunity, a chance to hear how the worlds of celebrity, sports, and brand partnerships are evolving. So to get us started, I'd like to bring out Scott Donaton. He's the Chief Content Officer for Digitas. He's going to be interviewing Kobe. Now, you may know Scott as the author of the book Madison and Vine, which is about the convergence of entertainment and marketing. He also used to head up Entertainment Weekly and Advertising Age magazine. So please help me welcome Scott. He's going to be bringing out Kobe. Let's go, Scott.
Good afternoon, everybody. So when I told the genie way back when that I wanted to go 48 minutes one-on-one with Kobe Bryant, this wasn't exactly what I had in mind. But at least in this scenario, I probably have less of a chance of embarrassing myself, more of a chance of holding my own, and potentially less of a chance of ending up in the hospital at the end. Before I bring out Kobe, I want to thank you all I know you all came for me. I'm going to bring this guy Kobe out. You might want to be interested in what he has to say as well. If you've been paying any attention the last 2 years to some of the moves that Kobe's been making and beginning to make, you'll know that may just be the beginning of his highlight reel. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Kobe Bryant.
How's everybody doing? Yeah?
Oh, I brought a few people here to see you.
Oh, this is awesome, man. This is awesome.
So thank you for joining us today. Really excited to have you here. So just quickly, we'll go deeper on some of these things. I think you formed Kobe Inc. about 2 years ago.
Yep.
One of your first big projects, Kobe Bryant's Muse, came out about a year ago. Won a Clio, among other honors. And very recently, as in the last few weeks, you announced a $100 million venture capital fund with Jeff Steibel to invest in media, entertainment, technology, startups, among other things. Let me open by asking you, at what point in your basketball career did you begin thinking about what's next, and what were some of the factors that went into that?
I started thinking about it probably around the age of 20, 21. You know, it's understanding that basketball is not going to be there forever. So you kind of got to figure out, okay, what's going to happen then when that time comes. And the hardest part is trying to figure out what the passion is going to be. So I thought it was important to start at a very early age so you have the ability to try different things and see, okay, I like this, no, I don't like that, or I love this, and get a chance to try things out. And, you know, it took me about 15, 16 years to finally figure it out. But that's when I started.
It's pretty amazing, though, that you started at, what, 2 or 3 years then into your playing career.
Yep.
Did you expect to, at that point, that you had played 20 years, or were you thinking that might have been a...
I didn't know. I didn't know how long I was going to play for. I mean, it's still kind of weird to sit here today and, you know, realize that I played for 20 years. Like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. I get asked all the time, do you miss it? I said, dude, I played for 20 years. Like, there's no more juice in that orange left to squeeze, dude. Like, dude, I'm good.
So it's good timing. Do any of the things you're doing now, this may be a silly question, but do any of them play into, or even in terms of the ambitions of maybe the kind of companies you might want to invest in or things you might want to do next, does any of it play into maybe what you would have thought before you had a professional basketball career might be things you would do? Were there things when you were younger that you thought you might want to do that you now kind of get the chance to?
Yeah, it's hard to say that because I can only remember a life that involved basketball. Like, I literally started playing at the age of 2 years old. So everything came from the game, right? So I was introduced to creative writing and marketing and all of these things through the game of basketball. So I couldn't even begin to imagine what life would have been like had I not had that ball.
Right.
Because everything grew from that.
So you were quoted on CNBC as saying that you'd rather be remembered for your role in jump-starting tech companies than your skills on the court. Can you talk to, what's that about? Is that about the opportunity you have to touch a lot more lives now? Is it about lasting legacy versus fleeting moment, although I think your career is already a lasting legacy? That's a pretty big bar to set for yourself.
Well, I mean, it's you know, I think you have to challenge yourself to evolve and to grow. And I couldn't think of a better message for, you know, athletes in particular, because it's very easy for us athletes to kind of lose ourselves and our identity by connecting who we are to what we do. And I think that's a very dangerous zone to be in, right? So it's common sense to me to be able to say, okay, the next stage I'm going after with the same intensity, the same attention to detail, the same curiosity. So of course I'd want to be better at that than I was in my previous career.
That's a pretty high bar, though. You have enough energy left for that orange, I guess.
We're going to find out, right? I mean, that's the thing. You know, you go for it, and you do all you can. You learn as much as you can. You continue to try. You continue to improve. You continue to evolve. And then you can see who you are, right? You know, 20 years from now, I can look in the mirror and say I gave it my best shot, and we did the best we could, and see where we end up.
It seems to me, reading a lot of the quotes and things, I can almost mix up some of the things you've said when you've talked about what you want to accomplish in business versus some of the things you've said as an athlete, which just shows kind of how much of it translates. Mm-hmm. What are the skills that you think best translate that you learned and picked up and built over the years to what you want to do now? And what are the areas that maybe are a little more frightening to you as muscles that you feel you have to develop?
Well, I think it's the communication and the working with groups of people. I mean, that's always the most important thing. I mean, that's how you win championships. I mean, you take guys on a team that have completely different backgrounds, you know, from different parts of the world, different religious beliefs, different political beliefs, and you put them all on one team and say, okay, you guys have to get on the same page and figure out how to win a championship, right? So figuring out how to navigate that and how to speak to the whole while speaking to individuals is, I think, the thing that carries over the most into the business world.
So what about the things that don't? What are the things that maybe you most are trying to immerse yourself in now or even have some fears around?
No, I mean, well, the thing that you lose is that instant gratification, right? When you play a game or you train, you see immediate results, right? You see that right there. You know, I worked on pull-up jump shot going left. I could see the results that night, right? And the business world is different. You know, you have to have the patience. You have to find beauty in the process of building something and find beauty in the journey and understand that the end result is not really the most beautiful part of it. And so it's having that patience that I think is the biggest difference between the two.
It struck me, and it's a great thought, that yesterday I just read an interview that Luke Walton gave, and he said that, I don't know if you saw this, but that when he was hungover during his rookie year, he came to one practice, and that you kind of made him pay for it. And he said that your work ethic and killer instincts as a result of that one day will stick with him forever. Maybe tell us a little about that day, and then how that work ethic and killer instinct come into play now.
He had a rough day. He had a rough day at the office that day. My message to the team was simple. Look, I understand there's different levels of focus and commitment to a craft. I get that completely. If guys want to go out and have a good time, I get that completely. However, if you're going to do that and you show up to work the next day, you better be ready, right? If you're going to do that, you better come to practice and you better be ready to go. And if you're not, I'm going to let you know. And I think the message was sent pretty clearly.
Do the employees of Kobe Inc. know that message as well?
Well, they do now.
You're obviously not the first athlete, to attempt this, to kind of recreate yourself, post your career, your athletic career as a businessman. Some have succeeded, some Kurt Schilling, and others have notably not succeeded. Do you have kind of concerns about that and fears, and how do you kind of face that challenge of even rising above just the thought of, oh, here's another athlete who wants to be a businessman?
No, I don't think about it, honestly. Those stories I'm completely aware of, and that I pay attention to and try to learn from. But from the outside perspective of, okay, it's another athlete trying to move into business, I literally could care less about what's being said, right? Because the focus must be on the work, it must be on the craft, it must be on what it is that you're doing on a daily basis, right? It's not in the conversation of trying to convince people, this is going to be a success.
Right.
No, we're really serious about, just focus on the work, focus on the craft, and hopefully time will reveal.
In saying that you look and try and learn from the ones that didn't make it, I know Jeff Steibel has this failure board in his office that he's talked about. How much do you guys talk about, especially when you're investing in tech companies, the idea of accepting failure being a part of success?
A ton. I mean, I think we talk about this often, and we always talk about the fact that you can learn a lot more from the failures than you can from the successes, and you have to figure out where those landmines are, and then how to best avoid those, or help entrepreneurs, and ourselves included, figure out the clues of where those landmines are. Not that you're going to avoid all of them,
right?
but it's also, when you do step on one, figuring out, okay, how do you recuperate? How do you balance back and pick yourself up? But as an athlete, the most important thing is to stay away from things that I don't understand. You know what I mean? Just stay away from it. You have people that understand it and people that you trust, and you build that relationship. Jeff and I have been working together for 4 years, and we started in a very patient, very small manner, and just built our trust as time went on. But as athletes, we got to stay away from things that we don't get, dude. Like I'm not going to sit here and say, okay, I sit in the office and read balance sheets all day. I don't do that. I don't have the mental stamina to do that.
Right. How does that play out toward that end in some of the investment decisions you're making? So, for example, again, as you said, you and Jeff just kind of formalized this fund a few weeks ago. You've been investing together for a while. Some of those investments would be what we would say are obvious investments for Kobe Bryant, like the Players Tribune, and some of them, like Ring DNA, which is a telemarketing software firm, might be not as intuitive. How does that come into play, that kind of, with you and Jeff? Is it, what you know and what you don't know? Is it personal passions?
It's a really funny relationship because, Jeff is like this tall, and I'm like this tall. And then, I'm the creative side of the brain. He's the execution side of the brain. And so when we look at deals, he'll bring them to me. We'll go through them in detail. And then I'll start formulating in my mind where the story of this company goes. Right? What's the trajectory of this company from a public standpoint? What can they communicate? What services are they providing that connect to the human nature of us all? How can you connect those dots? And that's what I really love doing.
What do you... take a step back to kind of, because I'm just kind of, have mentioned that you guys are doing this, it's come out, but would love to just hear through your eyes what the vision is that you have with this $100 million fund. What are you hoping to accomplish? What kind of change do you want to make in the world?
Just try to help put entrepreneurs in the best possible situation to be successful. That's all it is. And, it starts with the entrepreneur, and it's them having a vision of how they can make the world a better place. I mean, I'm sure we've heard that ad nauseum, right? But if they have that passion first, and if the product that they're creating has a true purpose for existing in the world, you've got to start there. And we just want to help them be successful.
You used the word, and you used it today. I've seen you use it in other interviews. You talk about storytelling a lot, which is actually one of my favorite words as a former journalist, as a writer, as a content creator. What does it mean to you, and how do you kind of help define not only the story of the companies you're investing in, as you said, helping them find that narrative, but what is the narrative and the story that you see for Kobe Inc. as a brand?
Well, for Kobe Inc., what we're trying to do is help people reach their maximum level of potential. And storytelling is obviously it's an extremely overused word. It's probably two words that are really running neck and neck in terms of overuse, and that's big data and storytelling, like neck and neck. But what we want to do with our stories is we want to be able to have the viewer internalize the story. Can we bring out compelling content that moves you in a certain way, where you see yourself through the lens of the story that we are creating? And if we can do that at Kobe Inc., we'll be very, very happy.
What other how much of, Kobe Inc. and this venture capital firm are a lot to take on? Are there other things? It seems like kind of each of your vehicles maybe has a specific purpose. Are there other areas and things that you're looking at and want to pursue?
Well, no, it's pacing, right? Because there's certain things that we want to get to, but we have to pace those out because we have to have absolute focus on a few of those things, right? The Bryant Stibel Fund and the stories that we are creating, right? Those are our two lenses right now. There are other things that are going to come, but that's way down the road. We have to have a very, very sharp lens because we can do so many things. That's the hardest part. Right. When we first started it is, you have so many people coming from different angles, different points of view, and you can do this, you can do that, and a lot of them are very lucrative offers, but they're small window opportunities. And the hardest part's been pushing those to the side and going for things that have a much, much longer tail, which is risky, but what are you going to do? I think that's the best way to go about it.
So you've mentioned that you've been lucky enough to have mentors in your life, such as Anna Wintour, the editor of Vogue, Arianna Huffington, Johnny Ive of Apple. How valuable has it been for you to be able to turn to people like that, and what kind of advice have they given you?
Whatever happened, I hope they're okay. It's been amazing. I'm notorious for just cold calling people, man. I just pick up the phone, call them up, and let's just talk. There's nothing in particular. I just want to talk and just, explain to me how you see your business. How do you operate the business? Johnny Ives in particular. It's just fascinating. His process of creating design. And when I was playing, when I did that, I used to try to connect the dots between how John Williams would compose a score for a film, or Johnny Ives would design a new Apple product, and how does that connect to how I play the game of basketball? Is there something there that I can learn that can be used when I step out here on the court? There's lessons that surround us. Life is basically a library. All we need to do is just open our eyes and look and ask and read accordingly.
So is that something you were doing? You were building those relationships even outside of your interests as a businessman, really, even as an athlete and a basketball player?
Yeah, it's the curiosity. I think the curiosity is the most important thing. It sounds really weird to say, but like leadership lessons. I learned leadership lessons just from walking in the park and just observing nature and the sun's relationship with nature and relationship with the moon and the sun understanding when to be present and when to go away, right? Because as a teammate, it was like, dude, the sun's out all damn long. You're going to sunburn a hell of a lot of people, right? So if I'm playing this game and I'm on top of my guys for 48 minutes, dude, you're going to sunburn every single teammate there, right? So there's certain times where it's important for the sun to be present. There's other times it needs to go away, right? And but they're life lessons that surround us at all times, and I've always been extremely, extremely curious about those things.
So how you're with a lot of those people, are, again, an Anna Wintour, Johnny Ive, are those people that you were meeting, through the fact that you were, at events, at conferences, at games, or as you said,
no,
how often do you pick up the phone?
Call
just pick up the phone and call them.
Yeah, just out the blue. Like I'll.
Are any of them hanging up on you? Think it's a prank call?
Something. No, I'll get a lot of. What the hell are you calling me for? But yeah, no, I'll do a lot of research. I'll read and I'll just kind of sit there and watch a lot of docs and just try to learn as much as I can. And if I'm watching something and all of a sudden a question pops in my head, I have to know the answer. I have to know. I can't just say, okay, I have this question and just kind of let it go. No, I need to know.
Right.
So I'll call.
That's awesome. Toward that end, one of the things I want to ask you, which connects directly out of that, do you think that being in LA as kind of the creative capital of the world gave you opportunities that you might not have had if you retired from, say, the Oklahoma City Thunder or Charlotte or Memphis or Phoenix? In other words, there's not to insult those markets, but it's more, does proximity to creativity create better access or intensify the itch?
I was never around it. It's really weird. I'm sitting here and saying, okay, storytelling, that's filmmaking, that's series and things, there's novels and things of that nature. But being here in LA, I literally was never around it. I mean, it was 100% basketball. 100%. I mean, I didn't go to the award show. It was like completely focused on the game. So it just so happened that my passion is what this city is known for, and it just kind of fell into it. So it's strange.
And now that your focus isn't 100% basketball, are you taking advantage of that access in different ways and tapping into that in a different way?
The stories have to be good, right? So you can have access to a lot of people. You can sit and get on the phone with anybody, but if the idea isn't there, if the core of the story isn't there, the characters aren't there, nobody's going to do business with you. Right. You'll wind up having a lot of meetings, right? And nothing gets executed. Right? So it all comes back to the truth of the story. And is the story good enough? And if it is, then I'm sure we'll be doing business.
You mentioned being intrigued by Johnny Ive's design. I think you actually designed the logo for your venture capital fund.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that you kind of see yourself as the creative in the partnership. Did you think of yourself as a creative, as an athlete as well? And what are the other ways in which you express yourself or want to express yourself creatively?
Well, Nike was such a great company because the truth of Nike's company, as told by Phil Knight, is to listen to the voice of the athlete. Right? And it just so happened that I had an itch for marketing and story as related to advertising and the products and the innovation, and then how that connects to the story of the athlete. And so I was able to start storytelling and building out the campaigns, and started writing quite a few of them, and then just started building them year by year. And so that's where the itch came from. So it started when, very, very early, writing stories, and I never thought like I'd actually be doing this.
Right.
But life will surprise you sometimes.
So how much do you enjoy? It sounds like you probably really enjoy the meetings with entrepreneurs with the fund and kind of kicking around visions and.
Well, I like talking. I like getting to know the process. The journey. What are you seeing? What are the how are you building it? And it's more so learning. To sit down and just have an open conversation about these things. I'm learning. I'm sure they're learning from some of the lessons that I'm sharing, the stories that I'm sharing about, winning championships and things of that nature. And you just sit and just talk. And ideas tend to emerge naturally from that.
I did an interview a few months ago with Mark Andreessen, and he said something really interesting, which is he said that the ideas that sound to him like good ideas from the start are probably not good ideas, because if they're probably too obvious, somebody else thought of them. If it's going to be the something killer, that company's probably thought of it. And he actually said that the ideas that end up often being his best picks are the ones that almost make him angry initially. He said, sometimes he'll literally be yelling and banging on the table, and that's when his staff will realize maybe there's something here, because it's somebody who's challenging, the way that we think. I don't know if that's something you associate with or feel, but kind of how does your gut come into play when you're hearing pitches and thinking about those reactions and what a company's potential is?
Yeah, it's just the truth. It's the truth of the company. It's the truth of the athlete. What is the truth of the story? Right? It starts there, man. It starts there. It's not trying to say, okay, I'm going to create an idea that's never been created before, or let's use our imagination to come up with something that the world has never seen. That's not it. It's not it. It's what do you want to build? What does your company stand for? And how do you think you can make a dent in the world? Right? And then once you start from that truth and understanding who you are, then from that, the idea will emerge. But you can't, I don't believe it can be flipped. I'm sure it happens sometimes and imagination strikes and all of a sudden something comes. But that'll be fleeting as well. But if you start with the truth and the idea comes from that, then that's when you have something that lasts forever.
What are some of the investments that you've made right now that you kind of,
Well, the one that everybody was like, what the hell are you doing? Don't do it. It was my first investment. It was body armor. And, it just kind of came, like I tore my Achilles, and I was just sitting at home. I just wanted to learn about business, so I started reading about micropoli, the vitamin water story and all sorts of stuff. So I just called him up, and I said, you got to tell me everything about how you built vitamin water from day one to when you sold it. He said, that's going to take a long time. I said, well, I'm kind of laid up right now, so I'm not going anywhere. So I got a lot of time. So we just started talking and built up a relationship over a year and a half, 2 years. But when we both moved in, when I moved into body armor, I mean, the business was nowhere near what it is today. And in fact, everybody told me not to do it. Everybody looked at the numbers, they looked at the product, no, don't do it. But I knew something that they didn't know, and that was a year and a half of conversations on the phone with Mike Rapoli and understanding his maniacal approach to the business, his attention to detail, his passion about the business. And I invested in him. And now it looks like a great investment. I was just like, dude, ignorance is bliss. Because if I know then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have invested in it. Right. Just looking at the business of it. But if you invest in the people, that tends to pay off most of the time.
So the key there is be laid up on the couch at home for 4 months, and then you'll make a
The key is tear your Achilles, and then you too can fall into a body armor. How about that?
I like it. I think I read somewhere you said you got tired of watching Ren and Stimpy reruns, and that's the point at which you picked up.
Dude, we watch, my daughter and I, and God bless my kids, man, because they're so sweet. They just sat with me on the bed, and we watched every episode of Modern Family. Like every single episode was the greatest. As a father, it's like the greatest thing.
Yeah,
you get ice cream,
nice gift.
and your daughter's on your lap, dude. That's like, it's heaven.
That's a nice gift. When you think about the filter for the companies you want to invest in, you talked about kind of what you're looking for in the vision and the truth and what the founders are trying to accomplish. What about the segments you're looking at? And I read a report yesterday that you might be looking at esports as a next investment vehicle. I don't know if you have thoughts about just that segment, without having to talk about your specific plans, unless you wanted to make news. But in general, what are the segments that you look at, and how do you decide where to look?
It's funny. It's not for us. We're flooded with requests every single day, right? And a lot of the times it's relationships. Jeff will know this entrepreneur, I know this person. So a lot of it's relationships and understanding the people that you trust and people that vouch for a certain entrepreneur. And then we start there, and then we just start talking, right? What is your vision for this particular company? Esports is like, we're talking about esports virtually every single day. And I'm sure there's a move to be made there, but we're just being very patient right now, letting the dust settle and then figure out what the best move to make.
When you look at some of these, as an athlete, and you hear that some of these esports franchises are getting bigger audience bases than NBA, NFL, MLB combined, does that shock you? That's a world that in some ways is probably so far from your experience, and yet.
No, not really. I mean, it's entertainment. It's entertainment. I mean, you're still watching a competitive event, right? It's entertainment. It's fun.
So where else do you think are areas that you might look at, or what companies maybe have come in and surprised you where you would think that's not an area I would have ever thought I'd be interested in investing in, but that vision seems
The
right.
VR space is a very interesting space in terms of where it can go and the potential that it has and the tool that it can be used for, particularly as it relates to sports and the educational component that it can be used for, and simulating certain schemes, certain strategic opportunities for athletes, but doing it in a very compelling way. The way it can be used for storytelling to explain different points of view, right? One thread of a narrative, different points of view taking place at the same time. I mean, there's a lot of, it's a big runway there that I'm very curious about where that goes.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I think it's going to be transformative to storytelling, and you know, there are those who believe we don't even really at all, just like the early days of television, you know, we're kind of mimicking radio, that we don't actually even know at this point what VR is capable of. And I know there's also...
It's just the sound. I think that the sound, and if you can hit the other senses, right? So if I'm experiencing VR, if I'm experiencing, I can feel the weather conditions, right? If the sound the sound is really the biggest factor, because sound is so impactful. When you watch a movie, the sound is really what's drawing you in, you know? And right now, VR is not there yet. But those are two things that I'm really interested about adding to the VR experience. I feel like if we can add those, it has the potential to be something special.
Yeah, I agree. How much and how long and how necessary is it to you? We're going back almost to the beginning question of this idea that at some point you want to build a legacy as ambitious, as successful as the one you built as an athlete, as a businessman. You're still thought of, I think, in a lot of cases, first as an athlete. Even the film we showed to introduce you is really all of your highlights as an athlete, and a lot of the moves you'll make right now that get a lot of attention. I know you showed up at WNBA finals, and that got a lot of attention. I'm sure there's a lot of focus right now on, you know, the basketball season that's about to start formally, and you know, is that kind of okay with you? That's obviously always part of you. At what point do you want that not to be maybe the first thing people say about you or the only thing they say about you?
No, I mean, it's fine with me. I mean, it's, you know, I think certain people identify with me from that lens and always will. I mean, I'm totally cool with that. I mean, I invested a lot of my time to make sure that first career was a successful one. So I'm completely fine with that. You know, at the same time, it's part of the challenge of not saying, okay, the focus isn't to one-up what I did before, but it's to simply continue to, you know, I have an itch. Continue to scratch that, you know, every day and just see where that leads, right? And see where we end up. And, you know, that's what I'm focused on. I'm not worried about whether, you know, I'm introduced as a basketball player or a businessman or a storyteller, what have you. I mean, you know, those things will work themselves out.
Right. Well, of course, you're 38 years old, so you're at a stage when a lot of people are still trying to figure out what they want to do.
Yeah, well, anyway. You know, coming from my last season, I didn't hear that I was young too often. I mean, I was playing with like, man, I was playing with kids that they could literally be my kids. I mean, it was the craziest thing in the world. Yeah. It was bizarre. It was really bizarre. It's like, oh yeah, I was 2 when you won your championship. I was like, what? What? Wait, so you never seen Michael play? They're like, no. It's like, what what am I doing here? I need to be home.
Is that when you know it's time to go?
Oh my God. You know, we had a game in Sacramento, and no kidding, the national anthem, I'm standing there, and I look up in the rafters in Sacramento, and I see Peja Stojakovic, Vlade Divac, Chris Webber, all these jerseys retired. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? Like they've stopped playing for a while. I mean, their jerseys are up there. What am I still doing here? I need to go home. So.
Yeah, I went to St. John's the years they were in the Final Four, which is a long time ago now as well. And it's interesting to see that all of those guys that I was in college with are already retired and onto their second careers.
Time has wings, man.
Exactly. So how much are you feeling, or are you? I mean, you said earlier, you squeezed all the juice out of that orange, but right now, we're literally, I think, 1 week from the regular season tip-off. Is there a part of you that's feeling like an itch or just a strangeness about not being there?
Yeah, no, it's weird, but I mean, not even nothing at all. I mean, it's really strange and bizarre. Like, I never would have thought that would have even been possible, years ago. But there's no desire to play. I mean, it's really strange. I play with my daughter who loves to play, and she loves watching the game, so I'll go out and shoot with her. But in terms of like playing, like there's not even a little bit, man. Yeah, it's bizarre.
Watching and following? Are you going to be a fan still of the game?
Well, I get in trouble for saying this all the time, but I mean, we got to figure out with our broadcast partners how to make sure the games aren't 5 hours long, because I can't do it. I'll be asleep like an hour in, you know what I mean? So we figure out how to make our games a little bit more efficient. I'll probably watch a little bit more.
Yeah, I think
this is too long for me.
Baseball could use your help. Maybe that's something you can take on.
I'll catch the last 2 innings. I know there's a big one going on today with the Dodgers and the Cubs. I mean, it's but I like watching the playoffs. And the games that I watch when I tune in, it's better now because I don't watch from a studying point of view. You know what I mean? I'm not watching and dissecting players because I'm going to have to face them. I'm not filing it away, to be used later. I get a chance to simply watch it and enjoy it and see what I see, and it's fun.
How much, again, the WNBA appearance, how important is it, it's the 20th anniversary of the WNBA, as a father of 2 daughters, and you're expecting a third child now as well.
Another girl, 3 girls, man, 3 princesses.
3 girls. How important is it for them? And obviously, we've got a lot of issues, women's issues, very much in the headlines right now in multiple ways in the country and around the world. What does the WNBA at 20 mean to you when you share that with your daughters?
Well, it's explaining to them what that all means. Our 10-year-old, she's really in a place now where she can start understanding those conversations and understanding the significance of it. And but it's important for them to have role models, right? And I think in the day and age that we live now, you see that a lot in content and entertainment. You see very strong, independent women in film, and our daughters will grow up understanding that they can be strong, they can be independent, they can be fierce, right? Because they don't know the other way. They see it, and it just becomes a part of them. It's like, okay, no, it's okay to be that, right? And as a parent, that's what you want, because they don't listen to me. They don't. I mean, I'll sit there and I'll be like, hey, mija, it's okay to have dreams. It's okay to go for it and all sort of stuff. And they're like, yeah, Dad, yeah, that's cool. Right? And then I'll take them to a Beyonce concert and we'll go in the back. I say, B, that was an amazing performance. Like, you killed it. She goes, well, yeah, I learned it from you. And I just look at my kids like, dude, she can listen, but you won't listen to me. It's the curse of being a parent.
Do they think you're cooler then?
Well, man, it'll buy me like a window of time. My kids they're funny, man. I did something for Taylor Swift at Staples Center, and for a tour, she kept bringing out special guests, right, every night. And so we're there, and Taylor and I were sitting there talking and stuff. My kids are there, and my kids go, so who's the special guest tonight? Shoot. And Taylor's like, it's your dad. And they go, yeah, but who else? They go, no, like, your dad's a big deal in Staples Center. Like, it's just your dad. They go, oh, man, got gypped. Yep. That's what goes down in the Bryant household, man. That's how it goes down.
I got the reverse. I got some coattails because I tweeted yesterday about doing this, and my daughter retweeted it and said, my dad's cooler than yours because he hangs out with Kobe Bryant. So
go figure.
My daughter's impressed.
See? I show that
your
to my
daughters
kids,
aren't.
man. Yeah.
No, it's an interesting thing when you were talking about WNBA, because it struck me, and I hadn't thought of this before, you know, for men who are professional athletes in most of our sports, you know, if there was going to be another generation that played, I mean, your dad played professional basketball, obviously. If there was going to be another generation that played, it was going to be the sons. And now, you know, because something like the WNBA, we have that example where, you know, you could have a third generation of pro basketball players, but now it's the girls as much as the boys that have that chance.
No, absolutely. And it's a great opportunity. I mean, the game is continuing to grow. I can't wait to see what the league is going to be like 20 years from now. Because it's continuing to grow, it's continuing to pick up traction. And it's a viable opportunity now, you know, for young women growing up saying, okay, I want to be a WNBA player. I can make a career out of that. And it's very inspiring.
How much do you feel, so switch gears back a little bit, it's interesting when I asked about being a fan of basketball and you said the game's too long right now. And obviously a lot of these sports have had issues with how to, you know, retain and attract the next generation of youth, especially as our attention spans get more and more splintered. Do you feel in any of the things you're doing, and maybe through Kobe Inc., you talked about helping individuals reach their potential, but do you feel either an obligation or a desire to maybe help basketball and maybe even other sports kind of, you know, use your same expertise as a marketer, as a brand, as a creative person, as an investor, to help them figure out their futures?
No, absolutely. And, you know, that goes hand in hand with storytelling and understanding what that means and what lens, what filter you put on it. And I think, you know, right now, sports content, if you look at it as a whole, it's they really try to land grab and capture as many fans as possible. And I believe the thing to do is really have a very sharp focus in who you speak to. And speaking to the athlete, very, very sharp focus. And I think if you're able to do that with a very sharp focus, I think you'll wind up touching many more people. Because the truth is what it takes to be a great athlete, the detail that it takes to be a great athlete is the same detail that it takes to be a great writer or a great composer or a great doctor or a great lawyer. It's the same thing, right? But if you speak very broadly in very generic language, you'll wind up gaining a lot of interest, but nothing that really moves someone. And I think the game right now is at a place where it needs to move people. And I'll do all I can to figure out what the best way to do that is.
And storytelling, as you said, right, it comes back to getting to the human heart.
It gets to the truth. You know, if we're speaking about basketball, speak about basketball, right? Don't dumb it down. Don't dumb it down. Speak to the kid out there that wants to be one of the all-time great basketball players. Speak to that kid. What are you going to say to that kid, right? And when you understand that that connection will connect to everyone else, then I think you have something that's vastly more powerful and vastly more interesting than the stuff that's currently churning.
Fascinating. I love that. And, you know, it struck me, you said much earlier today that, 40 minutes ago, that in basketball you kind of got this instant gratification that you don't get as a businessman, but not completely true. You were known to have one of the best work ethics in the game, and obviously, you know, there was discipline, there was a lot of work, it wasn't as simple as that layup went in, right? There was a lot of work and prep that went into that layup going in.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to find enjoyment in the process of it, you know, and I think it's just finding what it is that you love to do. Like I don't feel like I worked a day in my life. You know, it's hard work as it's defined by the world, but to me, there was no place I'd rather be. Like I'd rather not be anywhere. I'd rather be on the track at 4 a.m. running wind sprints, and, you know, then be in a weight room at 6, and then be on the court at 9, and then, you know, train till 3, and then be back. You know, like, I'd rather be doing that than anything else. So it wasn't like it was hard work. I just found what it is that I love to do. And so, like, now, like, my last game, which is really, I don't think, not too many people know this, but the day of my last game, I was at the office editing these stories. I had these stories that I outlined and have some very talented writers, and so they wrote the stories and sent them back, and I had to edit these stories. Like, I wanted to see them finished. So I was at the office editing 4 stories till about 4 o'clock, 4:15, right? Lost track of time. Right? So I'm sitting there writing, I'm looking, oh shit, it's 4:15, I gotta go home. Went home, showered, changed, flew down to the game, played the game, right? Came home, hung out with the family, woke up the next morning, worked out, went back to the office, finished editing the stories. You know, so like when you find a thing that you love, that's what told me I really love the process of this thing right here. I mean, I completely forgot that night was like my last game.
All right.
It was bizarre.
If we were sitting here, I won't say 5 years from now, that's too far out. If a year from now you accepted an invitation to come back and talk to this audience, what do you hope you'd be talking about?
Well, I think in 5 years' time, I mean, we'll obviously have some good conversations on the fund and where it is currently. But we'll also have a lot to talk about in terms of the stories that we have created and how those stories have impacted children ages 9 to 12. Will be, I think, 5 years, the next conversation we have will be really, really focused on how we utilize sports and the fantasy of sports to inspire the next generation of athletes.
I saw a headline on ESPN. They were talking about your business ventures. I think it was the day that you and Jeff announced formally your fund. And the headline was, in 5 years, who will be bigger, Kobe or LeBron? And the discussion, though, was him as an athlete versus you as a businessman, which I thought was an interesting juxtaposition.
Again, it goes back to the really surface level content that is currently churning out there. I mean, out of all things to discuss, you know, the conversation should have a little bit more weight to it, you know, but it's kind of the world we live in. You know, it's very superficial like in nature, and it's this or that, and, you know, which side are you on, this or that, not looking into the detail of it all. I find it amusing, honestly, and I think for athletes, it's, you know, Bryant and I have worked together before. We'll continue to work together, all the athletes, because you continue to support each other and see each other. You want each other to do well. You know, it's like we grow up from AAU basketball and AAU sports, and you're conditioned to say, okay, it's this athlete versus this athlete, right? As if there's no other businesses to be had in the world where we all have to compete for the same damn thing. I mean, it's insane, but, you know.
It drives ratings.
Exactly.
Well, I think you've shared some amazing insights today. You know, it's always interesting when I have a conversation like this with someone like you in front of an audience like this. There are always people who ask me what I'm doing in advance, like, well, what's the connection? And I think the connection in all of the things. Not only are you actually investing in companies in this space and directly touching a lot of these people's lives, but I think a lot of the lessons you talked about truth, about passion, you know, really resonate with me, and I'm sure resonate with everyone in the audience. So can you all please join me in thanking Kobe for his time today?
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
All these kinds of places make it seem like it's been ages. Tomorrow, something
Hey, everybody, wasn't that awesome? Thank you, Scott and Kobe. All right. Well, we've had a great time here these last few days, and I want to start thinking about what's next and the fact that we're all going to be together next year and then 2017. And guess where we're going? We're going to New Orleans. And yes, I will be there as your host. So let's get in the spirit of, thank you. Let's get in the spirit of New Orleans. Mark your calendars for October 8th through the 11th, and please help me welcome the Mud Bugs Brass Band. Here they come. For the 100th anniversary celebration. Bye, everybody. Woo!
Thank you.